All right, welcome into Starting Nine here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. Producer today is Manny Chang. We'll try to get up some of your comments as we go here. We're going to be here about 15, 20 minutes to start your day. Also, check out two new episodes of Five on the Floor. We did one of a recap of the Dallas game, the win against Dallas 129-122 for the Miami Heat. Greg and I did that, Greg Sylvander and I. And then yesterday, also, Alex Toledo and I did an episode about whether or not the Heat should continue to play all their starters and key guys down the stretch of the season, considering that the sixth seed at this point, we're going to talk about that today, is pretty much gone. Also, new episode coming up of Five on the Floor today, in which three of us, actually, Greg, me, and Brady Hawk, went over the Bam Jimmy connection and why it is that Jimmy Butler has 7 assists to Cody Zeller in one game, but averages less than 1 assist per game to Bam Adebayo. So we get into the dynamics there. We do want to mention our two sponsors here of this program. Always our sponsors here of Starting Nine. We'll start here with Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get the initial deposit matched up to $100. There's the code 5. Again, you get it matched up to $100. It's just rated the number one fastest growing sports product in the country. You can play all the sports there, not just NBA. They have NFL season props up there right now. You've also going to do MLS, NHL. Everything is up there on Prize Picks. And again, use that code. After you download the app, you can download it at the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or just go to prizepicks.com and you get a match up to $100. There are no rollovers, which means the money is yours to play right away. It is your money. And you can play Flex Play, Power Play, or anything else you want to play. So go to prizepicks.com. Our other sponsor today, it may not seem like it now because we just hit April, but we know that hurricane season is always around the corner. So check out All Pro Construction Builders. It's allproconstructionbuilders.com. If you go there and you get your hurricane windows and doors and all the other stuff that you need to protect yourself, then you mentioned 5 reasons, you'll get a 10% discount over your entire order. So reach out to Danny and the crew. Brand new website there, All Pro Construction Builders, allproconstructionbuilders.com. They use quality American-made products, and they're based down here in Dade County, but they service Broward, Monroe counties as well. So go to All Pro Construction Builders, reach out to Danny and the crew. Huge Miami Heat fan. There again is the Instagram page as well. The phone number 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. They'll handle your entire job for you, and they're a state certified general contractor. And away we go. All right, so let's get to it here. The Miami Heat are now, and we got the comment here from Gio, I think a big part of it is the defense focused more on Bam than anyone has ever focused on Zeller. Also, the Mavericks can't even spell defense. That is correct. There is no D in Dallas. So we did focus on that a little bit in that particular podcast, the Butler Bam connection. There's more to it than just that, although Gio hits on some of it. Brady touched on a lot of that. He did ask the question of Eric Spoelstra, and Eric gave a very long answer, as he tends to do to Brady Hawk questions, which is why we like having Brady and Alex there, because they get good answers about basketball-related stuff. So better answers than I get, actually. So definitely listen to that episode. We get into a lot of that there. But I want to focus more big picture today on Starting Nine, kind of what would make this season tolerable in retrospect. Because we know that this is a championship organization, or that's what they qualify themselves as. Of course, 3 titles since 2006, 6 NBA finals in that time. And, of course, Pat Riley teams have made the playoffs. I think it's all but 6 times since he took over. I think that's the stat, and they're going to make the playoffs again, we think. I don't know if the play-in counts for that in terms of that record. If they end up getting eliminated in the play-in and don't make a playoff series, I guess we probably would not count that. But essentially, they've made the playoffs about 80% of the time since Pat Riley has come to Miami, and that's a ridiculous record. I mean, if you consider the fact that Sacramento hadn't made it in 16 years until they just made it, and they're lighting the beam and throwing parades and all that kind of stuff for making it, it is still a significant achievement. We know that basically half the league makes the playoffs in a given year. And so we're slightly more than half the league. And so, you should be making it pretty much as a standard NBA organization about every other year. The Heat don't make it every other year. They make it 4 out of every 5 years. And so credit to Riley for that. Obviously, for being consistently competitive, and credit to him for not bottoming out and tanking. They've really only done that once in 2007, 2008. And it was not intentional. They didn't go into the season with that plan, but everybody got hurt. and then they started playing Kasib Powell and Stefan Lasmy and a whole bunch of G League guys, and that's where they ended up. So you got to give them credit for that. You got to give them credit, too, for, again, they're not going to be a losing team this season because they cleared the 41 win threshold. And they're probably going to end up winning 44 or 45 games if you just look at their schedule. Okay, you've got Detroit coming up. They've got Philadelphia on the road, but I don't know that the Sixers are going to be playing everybody down the stretch. That's an issue, actually, when they played the Nets in the last game of the season, or it would have been an issue for the Heat if they were still chasing the Nets. Because you look at Philadelphia's situation, they're pretty much locked into the 3. They can catch Boston, but they need Boston to collapse. So it looks like the Sixers are going to be the 3 seed. So there's really no reason for them to continue playing players. So that's a likely win situation for Miami. We'll see. It's on the road. But again, you don't know if Embiid and Harden and Maxey are going to play. And then there's the game against Washington, a team that's not playing for anything. The Heat have dropped some games to the Wizards before, but the Wizards have nothing to play for. And then you're closing the season with Orlando at home at 1 o'clock, another game that you should win that's on Easter Sunday. So Miami really could run the table the rest of the way. Like, they could run the table. They could get to 45 wins. 45 wins, again, in the NBA is a respectable total. I had them at 48 before the season. It's not all that far beyond what I thought they were going to be this year. And you look at all the games that they left on the table, there are 2 schools of thought here. One is, and our Gad Cartagena kind of expressed this, that they probably should have won less, because if you look at their net rating, they're actually worse than their record says they are. They've been very good in clutch situations overall, which is the only reason they have as many wins as they do. But then if you want to look at it the other side and you look at losses to Detroit, to San Antonio, 2 losses to Charlotte, loss to Orlando, must I go on? Okay, obviously 3 losses to the Bulls, team that is going to be probably at best the 10 seed. That's ridiculous. And so when you look at it at that side of it, you say they should have won more than 45, okay? But let's say that those things even out. The fact that they won a lot of clutch games they probably shouldn't have won, and then they lost a lot of games to teams they probably shouldn't have lost to. So let's say they're a 45-win team. Even being a 44 or 45-win team is not an embarrassment. It's not a joke. It's not terrible for most franchises around the NBA. I was looking at the Knicks, and they're going to get there this year, but I think like 16 of the last 20 years, they haven't gotten to 45 wins. So this is not a disaster season, okay? But it is a disappointing one. This one comes in from Gio. This teams feel like it should have won 50 games and should have won 30 games at the same time. Exactly. And so they end up at 45, okay? And all in all, again, not a disaster. But with that being said, it's not going to be anything satisfying either. Okay, if it ends the way that we think it's going to end, which is if they do get through the play-in, which I would not guarantee, by the way. If they're the 7 seed, which looks like the likely scenario, and they get Toronto, there's a legitimate chance they could lose that game to the Raptors. The Raptors are playing probably better than they are right now. They added at the trade deadline rather than subtracting. They won 3 of 4 games against the Heat. The Heat's length gives them problems, particularly Tyler. And so could they lose a home game to the Raptors to start the play-in? Absolutely. And then what would happen? Okay, so then they would have to go into the game against the 9-10 winner, which would likely be, say, Atlanta versus Chicago. And I'll just say this. They better hope Atlanta wins that, if that's the case, because I don't like their chances against Chicago either. They've lost all 3 games against Chicago. There were extenuating circumstances. There were a lot of Heat players who did not play in those particular games. But they did play most of their guys in the opener against them, the season opener, and they lost at home. So could they lose at home to Chicago again? The fact that Chicago's played very good defense, actually, over the past couple of months. They've kind of adjusted to the fact that they weren't going to have Lonzo Ball. And they have 2 scorers in Levine and DeRozan who have given the Heat problems, particularly DeRozan. So could they lose to Chicago? Absolutely. So could this season flame out with 2 losses in the play-in? Yes. But I think the more likely scenario is that they end up getting to a playoff series and they lose to Boston in 5 games. And so if that is the result, how are Heat fans going to view this? Well, they're probably not going to view it like I'm talking about here at the beginning of the show. They're probably not going to view it like, okay, 45 wins, you get to a first-round series. It's not an awful season. They're going to view it as an awful season by Heat standards. Again, most of the Heat fans that follow us on 5 Reasons grew up in the Shaq grew up loving the Heat in the Shaq or Big 3 eras where you were expecting success. They don't They're not thinking back to the Kendall Gill teams or Travis Best teams of the early 2000s or the year that Caron Butler was the only player on the team. They're not looking at that. They're looking at teams that were expected to compete, contend for championships. And even some of the old school Heat fans that remember the Zoe Timmy days, some of them may be looking at that way too. And so they're not going to look at this as any kind of a success, losing in 5 games to Boston, particularly when you took Boston to the brink last year. And it may not even be 5 games. You may not even get a game against Boston this year. Who knows? Okay, it kind of depends on how Boston's shooting. They've gone through some stretches this year where they've shot the ball extraordinarily well, and some other stretches where they've really cratered. But Boston is better than Miami. They're better. They were better slightly last year. They added Malcolm Brogdon. When they're healthy, they are better, okay, than Miami is. And so the expectation is they're going to lose that series, and I would pick Miami to lose that series. And so, again, if the season ends in 5 games, how is this going to be viewed? So what I wanted to get to today in a long-winded way is how can the Heat salvage this thing? How can this season be declared in any way, any kind of success? And I feel like for Heat fans, the only way is if, again, they win the play-in and somehow pull a massive upset against the Celtics, in which case, if they did that, they would likely get Philadelphia in the next round. And then Heat fans would get kind of greedy there for sure because they've beaten the Sixers before, and because we know that Doc Rivers in the playoffs is kind of a iffy proposition, and you know that Embiid and Harden might get hurt, and you might catch a break and all that. I would say at that point, if you get there and you lose, I would declare this season to be salvaged. If you can get to the second round, if you can upset Boston and get to the second round and be one of the final 4 teams in the East, to me, it doesn't justify whatever plan you had going forward in terms of sticking with it. But to me, at least the season, you can look back and say it was some kind of reasonable success. Now, I don't think the Heat fans viewed it that way with the sweep against Milwaukee 2 years ago after coming out of the bubble. And so that's why I'm saying if they get swept or beat badly by Boston in the first round, they won't view it that way. Okay, so how do you salvage the season? How do you pull the kind of upset that's going to make people feel better about this? Well, a few things have to happen. The first thing is Jimmy has to continue to play at this level, and I don't know that you can expect Jimmy to play at this level or sustain this level because, to be honest, he's never played at this level before in the regular season. I mean that as a compliment to what he's doing now. He's shooting 62% since the All-Star break. I mean, that game on Saturday, if you want to look at a guy who has mastered the game in terms of pace, in terms of playing the way he wants to play, it literally did not matter what they were trying to do to him. See, the thing about Jimmy is nothing is spectacular, right? Like, he's not above the rim and all that. It's just he's a tactician. Like, he is going to play at his pace, and he doesn't really care if you double him. He doesn't care what defensively you're trying to do to him. For a guy who does not have elite athleticism, does not have elite strength, he's strong, but okay, wiry strong, but does not have elite strength, it does not have elite size, does not have elite anything, really. He's remarkable what he is able to do. I mean, this is not Giannis, okay? He's just bigger and stronger than everybody who's trying to guard him. I mean, he absolutely just grinded Dallas down and just kept running the same damn play with Cody Zeller over and over and over and executing it. And again, Dallas is awful defensively, but they're NBA players and they could not do anything against it. So can Jimmy continue to play at that level? Can he continue to control and dominate games in the playoffs like this? Well, he's done it in the playoffs before, but I don't think he's even played at this level. I don't. The scoring, yes. Okay, the scoring, he has scored more than this. But just in terms of control of the game, he's at another place right now. So can he continue that? He will need to. Second thing that needs to happen, obviously, is Bam Adebayo needs to come back healthy, but Bam Adebayo needs to come back as first half Bam. And, you know, I think one of the things we got into in the Jimmy Bam pod that is worth listening to is that if it does seem like it's a zero-sum game with the two of them, they don't add to each other. It's like, when Bam was breaking out early this season, Jimmy stepped back a little bit. And then now Jimmy's gone crazy in a positive way, and Bam has stepped back. I kind of feel like Jimmy's done it because Bam has stepped back. They need to add to each other somehow, okay? But Bam needs to get his level up. Defensively, you know, it's crazy. I actually think he had a shot at Defensive Player of the Year this year, but his level defensively has not been where it was last season. Now, they did demand a ton of him in the first half of the year. I think it wore him down a little bit. Talking about expecting him to take the 15, 16 shots a game while anchor the Heat's defense in every single way. But he's not been the same player since the first half of the season. He would need to get to that level. And the third thing that would need to happen, there are 4 things total, but the third thing that would need to happen is Tyler Hero needs to be consistent. We see it sometimes from him. We certainly see it in the fourth quarter, but there needs to be consistency. And I do think that if there's a reason to have a playoff series this year, which you're likely going to lose against Boston, the reason to get to that playoff series is to see how Bam and Tyler perform in that series. Because Tyler has a lot to make up for since last postseason. And we've kind of been waiting for it. And now if they end up in a situation where they're out in 2 games in a play-in, you don't really get a chance to get that extended look of at least 4, 5, 6 games with Tyler there, then you really still don't know what you have in terms of a playoff performer. The bubble was different. He's better than he was in the bubble. People get this confused all the time. He's better. Like people, national media, oh, bubble boy. No, he's a much better player than he was now. It's not even close. The difference is the teams have more of a book on him now, and they try to force the ball out of his hands. They send the doubles. He's gotten better at the counters, but we'll see what he does against length in the playoffs if they get there. Boston is a difficult matchup for him. He would rather play Milwaukee. He's admitted that. He would rather play Milwaukee. Milwaukee plays drop. He's a drop killer. Boston does not play as much drop. They're going to press him. They're going to send 2. They're going to send Marcus Smart at him. They're going to send Jaylen Brown at him. It is more challenging against Boston, so you want to see what he does. The fourth thing you kind of want to see is, can the Heat's shooting normalize? Now, it has normalized a little bit since the break. It has gotten better, but it is not where it was last season. But can it normalize? Max Strus is shooting 40% since the All-Star break from 3. Kyle Lowry shot the ball better from 3. Can they get 2 weeks of a hot shooting stretch? Can they? They have not really put that together this season, but can they? If all of those things happen, Hero is consistent, handles length well. Bam gets back to first half, Bam. Jimmy continues to play at this level. The shooters shoot well. And then defensively, they figure out how to hide Kevin Love and some of the others and still play aggressively. Could they push Boston in a playoff series? Yes. Tatum has had some odd games against Miami, some incredible games, but also some poor games. But to me, the threshold to not make this, in retrospect, a total waste of a season is they have to get through the play-in and they have to make it really, really competitive against Boston. If they beat Boston, they get to Philadelphia, they lose to Philadelphia, and they lose, will I declare the season a success? Again, the Heat have a different threshold for that as an organization. But at least we won't look back at this year in anger, which I think is what most people are doing. And they will still need to make some changes in the offseason. This comes in from Alan. We'll put up some comments before we close. Can't trust this team in a one-game play-in. No, you can't, which is why they kind of need the second game, right? That's why they need to get to the 7 spot, because they lose to Toronto. At least they can clean it up by beating Chicago or Atlanta and advancing. But no, I don't trust them either. Braun, Tyler has been a James Harden in the playoffs. He's about 1 or 2 games good and disappears the rest. That is one of the reasons why I want to see him play 5, 6, 7 games in the playoffs, because I want to see how he recovers, how he reacts to the way the team's playing. There's going to be tough games, and he's going to have to get through it. And then this, Alex says, Bam needs to come back as Giannis. The crazy thing about this, he was not Giannis in the first half of the season, but he was a pretty damn good facsimile. You look at the numbers in the first half of the year and the impact, and you will absolutely take that from him. Nobody's going to be Giannis. But he was in the stratosphere. We were talking about him as a top 12 player in the league. We're not talking about him like that in the second half of the season. And I said this on the podcast last night, and when I post today, I do think this one is worth a listen because it took us some time, but we got through all the numbers about assists and all the rest of this stuff. The thing about Bam and Jimmy is it seems like they have their best games when the other doesn't play. That has to change. I want to thank the producer, Maddie Chang. I do want to go over a few things that are happening this week. That's one of the reasons we do Starting 9 on Monday mornings. Kind of give you a list. Again, bunch of 5 on the Floor episodes coming up. If you're a Dolphin fan, there's already a Louis Sung episode up of Finn's Nation. We've got a watch party tomorrow night. Heat Pistons. We're going to be at Tropical Distillers. 2-for-1 shots prior to tip-off. And who knows, if they're losing, maybe we'll buy some shots for you there too. It's a great place. They do their own alcohol there. So check it out. Tropical Distillers in Alapata in Miami. It's free to go. And again, you get 2-for-1 shots. prior to the game. Also, we'll be on playback tomorrow night. Make sure you check that out. And also, a major announcement this week of some expansion of our overall national NBA platform here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks to Manny for producing. More content coming throughout the day. Check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get the initial deposit match to $100. And then with all my pictures of the wall of me and my daughter. See, doing this in the playroom. AllProConstructionBuilders.com. Reach out to Danny. Mention 5 Reasons. Get 10% off. I'll try not to knock down my phone now. 305-484-4429. Have a good day, everybody.